Revenge films.
My name is Amy Lynn. Shortly after starting college, I found out about my mother's infidelity. My parents divorced when I was in 8th grade because of my father's infidelity. And my mother remarried 2 years later. I didn't think much of it at the time. But it would mean that while she was still in a committed relationship with my previous father, my mother was also having an affair and making a lover somewhere else. And that would be my stepfather. As a side note, it seems that my stepfather also had a wife and child when he was dating my mother. So that meant that they were both having affairs. My mother harshly accused my father of cheating on her before the divorce. But now that I think about it, I feel like my mother can't speak for others in a big way either. I never had good memories of my previous father. So I was always grateful to my stepfather for providing for me and my brother, and loving us even more than my previous father did. What I write from this point on will be the ordeal experienced by me, a college student, and my brother, a high school student at the time. On the day the Great East Japan earthquake struck, I felt a moderate tremor in my area. And my mother, brother, and I gathered in the living room to watch the earthquake early warning and the terrible devastation in the Tohoku region on TV. It occurred to me that my mother was calling someone on her cell phone away from us. At first, I thought she was contacting my stepfather, but judging by her tone and demeanor, she was clearly talking to someone that wasn't him. In addition, my mother had a habit of turning up the volume on her cell phone to the maximum, and a man's voice, not my stepfather's, was leaking from the phone. At that point, I had a bad feeling. I was later told that my brother had his suspicions at this point too. At that moment, my mother said, "Take care of the house. I have somewhere to go." "Hey, wait! Where are you going? You're just going to leave us here? I'm sorry." And then she left. We were stunned, and anger welled up in us. She came back 3 hours later, shortly before my stepfather returned. I was also angry at her calculated behavior. That night, after my parents went to bed, I went through all the incoming and outgoing calls on my mother's phone, as well as all the texts sent and received. Either she was completely off guard, or she thought she wouldn't be found out, but there was no password on her cell phone. And it was as if she was asking to be looked at. The results showed she was guilty. I found all kinds of evidence in the emails, including a variety of romantic messages, some of which were extreme in content. I never thought the earthquake would be the reason I would discover my mother's affair. It made me feel inexplicable. As expected, the partner's name wasn't registered as his real name, but as Mr. B, and I couldn't find out his real name. However, based on the contents of the email and the time of day, I came to the conclusion that he was a regular customer at the gym my parents were using at the time. I despised my mother's humanity from the bottom of my heart. Because she had an affair with someone she met at the gym she went to with my stepfather. And the first person she checked to see if he was safe on the day of the earthquake was not my stepfather, but the person she was having an affair with. I owed my stepfather a great deal, so the idea that my mother had betrayed him troubled me all night long. I pondered whether or not I should tell this matter to my brother, who was preparing to take an exam, but he realized that something was wrong with me.
I really want to know. I'll be more curious if I don't hear it. I won't be able to concentrate on the exam.
He begged me to tell him, so I told him about how our mother was having an affair, and who she was having an affair with, and so on. My brother got pretty confused, so he and I talked it over for a while to see how things would go. Because of our father, we both had an aversion to the idea of cheating, so we just needed time to calm down. In the meantime, I forwarded my mother's incoming and outgoing call logs and flirtatious emails to my personal computer. And to get to know the person with whom she was having an affair, I asked a friend who worked at the gym to help me find out what the person looked like, and what time she goes to the gym, without mentioning the affair. I couldn't ask for his address or phone number because they are personal information, but I found out that he's a middle-aged handsome guy who's quite popular at the gym. From there, I easily learned the person's real name, occupation, family members, and where he lived from my parents' conversations. And from a very chatty lady who went to the same gym in the neighborhood. Apparently, he had a relatively close relationship with my parents, and my stepfather was able to tell me more about the man. And my mother, who was an idiot, showed me a picture of him so I could see what he looked like. I was truly disgusted that she really thought she wouldn't be found out. It turns out that the other party also had a wife and child, and that meant that they were both having affairs. He has a daughter, but she's already independent, and he currently lives with his wife. He's a government employee and earns well and lives a comfortable life. But he and his wife don't get along. He impregnated his wife in a youthful inexperience, and was half forced to marry her because his family wanted him to. I honestly thought he seemed to have a history of infidelity. I watched him for the next month or so, and as expected, the affair just got more and more heated. She started going to the gym without my stepfather, sometimes going in the morning and not coming home until late at night. But she always targeted the days when he was coming home late, so he never seemed suspicious. This isn't just temporary. I want to be with you, but right now my kids are the problem. When I saw my mother's text message to the man, it was so painful that I wanted to die. And I didn't know how to deal with her anymore, because I was confronted with the fact that my brother and I were nothing but an obstacle to her. My brother and I were both physically and emotionally exhausted, and we felt trapped because we assumed we couldn't talk to anyone about it. But things took a further turn for the worse. One day, a few weeks after a month of observation, a woman, claiming to be the wife of the unfaithful partner, came to our home. For better or worse, my parents were at the gym and my brother was at prep school, so I was the first to meet the woman. "Are you the daughter here?" the woman asked me, and I responded calmly, "That's right. What can I do for you?" Then she said, "I need to speak with you, so please get ready to come out right away. Tell your parents you're going to meet a friend." I had a hunch that this was definitely about the infidelity, so I did as the woman asked. And at a coffee shop about an hour from my home, she confided everything to me. The woman was definitely his wife, and the details of the conversation were, "Your mother is having an affair with my husband. My husband was acting strange, so I looked into the social circle at the gym. So when I looked at his cell phone history, email history, and data folders, I found exchanges with your mother and some dodgy pictures." The photos ranged from those of them doing the deed to those of them posing like models. As for my own mother, I felt embarrassed and ashamed. "I would give my husband and I a second chance if I could, but maybe we'll end up divorced. Of course, I can't forgive your mother for what she did, and I will make her pay alimony. But I know your family has things to deal with. Please tell your father about everything," she said, and forced me into the role of the messenger. Perhaps that was the final straw. A few days later, I was found collapsed in a university bathroom, and after examination, I was diagnosed with an acute gastric ulcer. At about the same time, my younger brother started having muscle spasms and other physical problems. So we both ended up in the hospital together. At this crucial point in the exam process, my brother exploded, apparently triggered by my mother saying this.
"That's because you're having an affair!"
He went on a screaming rampage in the hospital. All the fuss at the hospital brought my mother's infidelity to light. And of course, my stepfather heard about it. Soon after, my stepfather talked about it with my mother. But as cheaters often say, "I didn't have an affair! He just went crazy under the pressure of the exams." I think she's beyond stupid and crazy. My grandparents, who came to visit us, took a hint of what was going on.
"If you know something, you should tell us everything you know."
That being said, I told them the whole story. And of course, I showed them the evidence of the files I transferred to my computer. From there, it was quick. We were sent to our grandparents' house until everything was resolved as a retreat. And my mother was forbidden to have any contact with us for a while, because we weren't comfortable with it. The man and my mother fully admitted that they were both having an affair. Based on the evidence I obtained from my independent research and the testimony of his wife, the other party ended up divorcing and paid a reasonable amount of alimony. Maybe it was because my stepfather himself had an affair with my mother before he remarried.
I'm not getting divorced because of the future of my children, but I will make sure that she settles the matter in a different way. I know my words aren't very convincing, but it's true that the affair destroyed the other party's family, and I will make sure she pays for what she did, not only to the other party's wife, but to the children for putting them in such a difficult position.
He got down on his knees and said to my grandparents, I didn't see my mother again until about 10 years later. They rented an apartment near their parents' house and lived there. But the phrase, the children are the problem, was so traumatizing that my mother wanted to see us. But we kept refusing with all our might not to see her. I saw my mother for the first time in 10 years when my stepfather called me over. And maybe it was because she was getting older, but she had aged drastically and she looked dirty. And she had cancer. They said she has 3 months to live. My stepfather told me that she misses us and wants to live together again, even if it's only for a short time before she dies. Besides, it's too late to be told such a thing now. And the words my mother once said have already taken root in the back of my mind for a long time. I thought she was a person who only thought about herself until her last breath, saying she was lonely and whatnot. My brother and I both worked and went our separate ways. So in the end, my mother passed away without her request being fulfilled. I don't mean to sound cold, but my mother brought this all on herself. I vowed to myself, after watching my mother die, that I would live a life that would never betray anyone.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.